Okay, good afternoon, Duncan. Great to have you here for this episode of Duncan's Deliberations. And we are going to talk this time about attitude.
Indeed. This is the first one we've done, and I'm really excited by the whole concept of Duncan's Deliberations because it allows me to reach out to people and to really engage with them. So wherever you are, whoever you are, whatever the time is, welcome from me. So Fraser, over to you, sir.
Okay, I just wanted to ask you the decision to start with attitude and why you took that. And I know from reading your new book, The Optimum You, available at theoptimumu.co.uk for all listeners who may be unaware of it. The book talks about attitude at the very beginning. So should I understand that this is a foundational step in the whole process of becoming the Optimum You, Duncan?
Yes, indeed. I put it very early on in the book, The Optimum You, because in my experience, if you don't adopt the right appropriate attitude, things don't really work very well, and you will not achieve the results that you're looking for. And the reason is really very simple. If there's a gap in your thinking, i.e. you haven't even considered adopting a positive attitude, so you're in neutral, as it were, the car you're driving will go in reverse and it'll become negative. Because as soon as a difficulty appears, our natural recourse is to raise our eyes, tut, grumble, and become negative. So we have to start every single day with positive attitudes. And this is from my own personal experience of learning that if I don't get out of bed in the morning and think, what are my positive attitudes? I am tempted all too easily to slip into being negative.
Sure, no, I understand that. It's very important. Which leads me on to the next point is obviously another part of attitudes are thoughts, but where do thoughts come from then?
Thoughts come from experiences. Therefore, the more experiences that we have, the more thoughts we will have. Now, there is a slight contradiction here, because there are times when people are, as it were, in isolation, and they have plenty of time to think. But what I've learned from interviewing various people in that situation, including people in prison, is that their thoughts go in circles. And they have a continuous round of circles, but not a great deal of innovation, because they are actually lacking experience. But the thoughts they do have themselves may be very good, but they aren't experiential. They are sequential and therefore repetitive. So what I've learned is the more experiences I have, the more thoughts I generate. And one of my personal rules, if it's as strong as that, is that I try to say to myself, or indeed out loud every single day, 50 times a day, that's interesting. And once I begin to find everything interesting, it prompts thoughts in my head. And then from my thoughts, I can determine them, turn them into positive attitudes. Now, if I so wished, I could turn them into negative attitudes. Or I could just let them, as it were, sit on the shelf. But I've learned not to do that. And one of the greatest helps here is playing sport. Because in sport, on many occasions, you make mistakes or the rub of the green goes against you. And if you don't have a positive attitude, you immediately become negative.
Yeah.
And that deteriorates into your performance, deteriorates. So I've learned over the years, I play a lot of sport and it's been a central part of my life. Positive attitudes win the day. Okay,
yeah, true. So again, some of it that is covered in the book. Perhaps you could give us some examples. So what do you recommend doing to adopt a positive and successful attitude then?
You have a choice every single day of your life. You have a choice as to, are you going to adopt a positive, negative, or neutral attitude? And where I'm concerned, why be negative? Why be neutral? So what my routine is, and I regret to say it's very simple, is that when I wake up in the morning, my first thought is, what attitudes am I going to adopt today? And I have a checklist, and I do look at the attitude board, which is in the Optimum You book.
Yeah, yeah.
And I do select the attitudes that I want to adopt. Now, what I've learned, again, over the years is that I don't need to sort of make this an onerous and difficult task, because it becomes self-evident after a time, is that I want to be cheerful, I want to be energetic, I want to be cooperative, I want to be popular. So why would I do things that were negative? So adopting the attitude, the more you do it, the easier it becomes.
Yeah. Yes, I really liked the attitude board in the book. Actually, I thought it was very interesting to see the two polar opposites for a number of words listed beside each other.
Thank you.
I found that very helpful.
Okay. Interestingly, I was talking to a person very recently who has bought the Optimum You, and he said that one of the attitudes that he adopts is that he finds it very difficult not to hold a grudge.
Okay.
And so he said, what advice would I give him? And I said, well, the attitude you want to adopt about holding a grudge is, what is the opposite of holding a grudge? And after he'd thought for a bit, he decided that for him, it was forgiving people, actually forgiving people. So I said to him, on the attitude board, just add the two options now available to you, forgiveness and holding a grudge. And every single day, initially, start thinking about forgiveness. It doesn't give you, it's not weakening. In fact, it strengthens you, because that attitude emboldens you to make a decision to forgive people. So everybody benefits. The people you're forgiving benefit, and you benefit because you've adopted a stronger, more positive attitude. And actually, he rang me up about 4 days ago and said, I've done it, and I forgave somebody, and it's transformed my relationship with him.
Okay. Okay. Something else I wanted to ask you, which brings me quite nicely onto it, is, are attitudes permanent, or do they need frequent reinforcement?
The more that you adopt the attitude, the more, as it were, permanent they become. But in my experience, because daily life can often be very difficult and demanding, and there are lots of wrinkles, as it were, on the pie crust of life, one does have to reaffirm them regularly. And that's why I have a daily routine of adopting the attitudes I want. So they are probably becoming, at my age, I'm now in my 70s, those attitudes are becoming more permanent. But something really serious can easily, as it were, wipe the blackboard clear, and you need to reaffirm them. So I think they can become permanent, yes, but it does take a lot of practice, and I would prefer to regard them as being slightly vulnerable. Therefore, they do need reaffirmation every single day or frequently.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. Now, something, an interesting concept, as you've mentioned to me, is feedback.
Yes.
Your definition of feedback is probably slightly different from what most people might expect. So can you talk to me about that and what it involves?
Certainly. Feedback for me is one of the greatest blessings that we are capable of giving and receiving to other people. And it is genuinely a gift. It is a present that you give, because even if the situation has produced a negative reaction, by offering feedback, you gain a positive from it. But it depends on how you do it. And this again goes back to your attitude. If your attitude is that you're going to be harsh and you're going to be extremely critical, the feedback that you give will be rejected by the other party because they don't like it. So you have to present feedback as a positive. I'm actually giving you a present. I'm identifying something which I would ask you to do differently in the future. Or I'm telling you something, I would like you to do more of this in the future because you did it so well. And the more you give feedback, the more you discover is that you're giving people positive, genuinely positive feedback for doing things well. And as building a team, teams that give feedback to each other become really, truly great teams.
Okay, yeah, great. I mean, it really has changed my outlook on the word. My whole relationship with the word has changed since you actually took me through what feedback really should mean. So I think that's a very positive thing for anyone listening to this or reading it to take away.
Let's go back to the word criticism. And the word criticism, it comes from kritikos, which is Greek. And in Greek, it actually means comment. It doesn't mean it's a harsh negative assessment of somebody's capabilities or style.
Yeah.
We've used the word criticism, and it always has got a harsh tone to it. And when you say to somebody, I want to give you feedback, initially their heart drops and they think, oh my gosh, I'm going to be criticized. And that's not the case.
Yeah.
You're going to be given something that is really useful.
Yeah.
It is always useful.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, the first time when we first met, and you very kindly offered to give me some feedback, I must admit I was a bit taken aback. At first I was expecting a negative, like most people probably are.
Yes.
Due to their misinterpretation of the concept.
Okay, because I play a lot of sport, feedback in the sporting arena is really important because I need to know what I did playing golf or playing squash or playing tennis or swimming. Has what I've done produced a positive result? If it hasn't, I want feedback. So I need people to say, my coach or my tutor in the sport, what you did wasn't successful because. So the feedback itself is always positive. It's then up to me to assess it, review it, and act on it. But it won't happen first. It won't happen perfectly every single time. In fact, where golf is concerned, it rarely happens perfectly. But you continue to take the feedback and work on it. And it's a very silly thing, but one of the driving ranges I go to quite often, I always try and get a driving bay where there's a mirror behind it. And that mirror gives me free feedback.
Okay, yeah. Absolutely, yes, it would. It would, yeah, I could do with one of those as well. Okay, marvelous. Well, that's as much as I wanted to ask you, Duncan. Have you any closing thoughts or remarks to finish off this segment?
Well, I think it's interesting that the word attitude begins with A. It doesn't begin with Z. It's right at the top of the alphabet. And I really would encourage people when reading the book and looking at the Future Life Today videos to go to the top of the alphabet and use the A of attitude as your launch platform in the change program you're going to be going through. Start there, and then everything becomes much easier and much more understandable because you're adopting the right positive attitudes.
Excellent. Great way to finish. Thank you for your time, Duncan, and for today's deliberation.
Very good. Okay, I look forward to the next one very shortly. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye for now.